Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and welcome back to part 3 of our series with John Hubbard. So glad to have you back, John. 25 years in the service, retired now, had 10 years as a detective, 8 years as sergeant, and was deputy of the year 5 times in Tampa Bay. Thank you so much for all your service for this city I live in. I really appreciate it, John, and I'm grateful for you to be here. Again, disclaimer, you're not involved in the Gabby Petito case. You are now retired. You're a private investigator currently, but you've been keeping tabs, and you're giving us your opinion and insight based on your years of experience. But thank you for being here, John.
Thank you.
So we've been talking about a lot. If you missed the first parts of our series, I'll put them up in the top left there, our iCard. You can go back and start at the beginning. But I want to get to this question of when will they arrest and why didn't they charge with murder? A lot of people sort of trying to figure it out. It seems like we've understood the reason they didn't charge with murder is because they're saving that. But instead, they charged him sort of with like credit card fraud. Can you explain sort of why that was a good move?
Oh, absolutely, because they don't want to show their hand yet, and nor should they until they actually have, Brian in custody. Because once they do, again, they don't want to help Brian's defense team, who's already in place, to start working up some theory for a defense, because they don't have to prove that he didn't do it. They have to just be able to get one juror to go along with them that he is not absolutely guilty of this crime. So, again, they're doing it to save the running clock, if you will, for speedy trial. Once they do arrest him and charge him with the actual crime of murder, then, they could enforce the speedy trial and move things right along and make it more difficult on gathering of evidence, which I'm sure they're gathering evidence on him every day.
So, and then the other reason was they were sort of, now it's across state lines, right? This over $1,000 charge allows them to sort of have other resources, is what I've been told too.
Well, they do. The FBI is involved, so, they have a lot of resources now. And of course, it's national media attention. So right. Not every case gets this, but this one did. And so they're going to dump a lot more resources on this case than they normally would.
I mean, a lot of people are criticizing. The Northport Police Department, I think, is being validly criticized for losing Brian in the first place. Now, costing all these resources. But do you think a lot of people are just criticizing the FBI? But is that just probably because they aren't telling us things for a reason? Because
of course, they're not going to.
Do you think they are actually on top of this, hopefully doing the right thing?
Oh, I think that well, I don't know if they gathered the proper evidence in a timely manner to begin with, but certainly they're doing the right things by now. And I'll just reiterate this again. I don't know whose responsibility it was in the beginning to keep an eye and keep surveillance on Brian Laundrie, whether it was Northport Police or the FBI. But there's no doubt it was definitely a law enforcement function to keep an eye on him until this body showed up.
What do you think will happen with the plan for arrest? I mean, they have to find him first, right? And I guess this is an arrest warrant, so this charge already sort of puts him under arrest to find him.
Correct.
But
somebody can take him into custody, because once they do an arrest warrant, they have to give a lot of details of why he did it and how he did it. Right. And so why would they want to show that hand? That goes right back to the autopsy. Why would you show if law enforcement, why would you show any of your hand to the Laundries and their defense team before you have to?
Right.
I wouldn't do it.
So when do you expect we will, I mean, if they find him, let's say, well, they'll interview him next? Like what's the timeline?
So they will attempt to interview him. I doubt he will talk to them. But once he gets arrested on his federal, credit card stuff, that's when the FBI will meet with him and give him an opportunity to, tell why he did or didn't do it. And, if he can try to convince them why this shouldn't be murder and maybe it should be, negligent homicide or something else, something less than first-degree murder. So I would always give the guy a chance to talk to me as a detective. I would want Brian to give me his version of events. And, of course, then you have the facts of what happened, and you'll see if his version matches up, if it's even a possibility. But regardless, once he is apprehended on the credit card stuff, no doubt that's when the murder charges are going to fall.
And I mean, the fact that he's on the run right now, whether he tries to claim, I was in the wilderness, I didn't know, whatever the excuse is, this running currently right now is not helping him, correct?
Not going to help him a bit. And of course, all of this will be for the jury to see. And then even more so, let's say he were to be found guilty, they find him, they found guilty, then he's going to have a sentencing hearing, to find out whether or not he should get the death penalty, whether he should get life in prison. And again, all of his cooperation or lack thereof, it's all going to play a role.
So now let's go the other what if scenario. Let's imagine that we don't find him and we don't know what to do. I'm curious, can his parents still be on the hook in any way? I guess they have to establish a crime. If they, at some point, they're like, look, we don't know if he's dead or alive. We're not finding him. Could they, but they suspect it's Brian. Is there any sort of way to get the parents still?
I believe law enforcement already has charges pending for the parents. That's my opinion. I think they already know what their involvement was and how and what they did to assist Brian in eluding law enforcement. And so, yeah, I think they have charges right now, but they don't want to start that process, getting the cart before the horse. Now, it'd be a real sad shame if the Laundrie parents were able to escape detention as well and surveillance and disappear themselves, because then they really have nothing.
I mean, at this point, that would be incredibly, I would think, impossible. The media's following them. Every time they leave in their truck, someone's following them. But yeah, it's an interesting idea. Is there any protocol to put them on house arrest or anything? I mean, they'd have to play more of their cards, but then that puts in the problem of then the clock starts ticking, correct?
Correct. I mean, what you want is the murderer here more than anything. So, I mean, the parents, their role, they had a role in helping him get away, but they're not the ones that killed Gabby. So they're not the top priority. They want to catch Brian at all costs. So, and, there's going to be a civil side of this as well. The Petito family are going to probably hold Brian's family accountable to some degree as well. Right. And the proof in a civil court's a lot less than criminal court.
How easy do you think that will be to prove that the parents were involved? I mean, without giving away secrets or any trade tricks of a detective.
Very easy. Look at the O.J. Simpson case.
That's good to hear.
Okay, he beat the criminal charge and boom, easily was found responsible for her death. So that's pretty. This one's probably going to be easier, because at the end of the day, once there's a case filed, then they're allowed to get evidence from law enforcement through subpoenas and whatnot, which at this point they don't want to give up. So I'm sure the Petito family is going to cooperate every way they can with law enforcement as well. But yeah, in a civil court, very easy to prove things. All you got to do is have the greater weight. So you only need 51% to believe there, whereas in criminal court you need beyond reasonable doubt.
So as we wrap this segment up and then prepare our last one, what is your prediction of what's happening next? Do you think it's going to be a while and they're waiting till we find him before we get any really big results, or could there be?
I don't think you're going to get anything unless we find Brian.
And how long do you think that'll take? And just in your experience, are you surprised it's taken this long, or should they? Could it be?
The reason
year?
It's taken so long is because they allowed him to. They don't know how long he disappeared. How big of a head start did Brian get?
Right.
And the real deal is, somebody knows where he's at, and is that person going to tell or not? Do they care enough about the death of this young lady, or are they going to speak? And there's probably going to be somebody that's going to give the tip that's going to help law enforcement. I don't think Brian's sitting in somebody's house waiting this thing out. He's off the grid, so they're going to have to find him. He got a good head start on them, and he's off the grid. Now, whether he's off the grid in, the United States or he's out of our country, I do believe the FBI has got enough information from what they've already discovered in these tips. They've got a good idea of where he's at, in my opinion. And so I think one of two things are going to happen. Either Brian's going to be found dead or alive. That's what I think. I do not think he's going to disappear forever. I don't think he's that good.
In your experience, do you feel like there is enough, like does the guilt or the shame of hiding this, like does that actually play out and have people step forward in your experience later? Or if someone covering up for someone typically continue to keep covering up for somebody? So
it depends on who that someone is. It's the family. You can't shame them enough. They don't care. They're going to, think about it if it's your own kid. Even if your own kid comes and tells you they committed a homicide, you're going to protect them until your own grave. So it'd have to be somebody with that type of a deal. But if it's like somebody that he helped get on a boat or whatever else, those people will, no matter how much money they got, there's no integrity there. They'll rat him right out.
Well,
and I'm sure he knows that.
Yeah, so you got to be careful who you talk to when you're on the run. Well, I appreciate your integrity, sir, and all your experience. And if you guys want to learn more about Hubbard Investigations, is the link for John. So grateful for all that you've done here in Tampa Bay and just in general. And I'm so grateful for you being here. We'll have one more installment of this with John, and then he'll be joining us live on the stream next week, so you won't want to miss that. In order to not miss that, hit subscribe, hit the bell for all alerts, and smash that like button for us trying to get you more experts and more real information on this case, rather than just keep the endless speculation from a bunch of people on YouTube who don't really know what they're doing. I will happily admit to everybody, John, I don't know a lot about this case, but I'm trying to give as much as I can for you guys because we're so fascinated by it. But stay tuned. I appreciate it, John. We'll be back with part 4 next.